In this screencast, we're going to focus on how to create a Google form or survey, poll, self-grading quiz, however you want to take a look at it. So I'm currently logged into the Google Docs. I'm going to go over here to create new, and in this drop-down menu you're going to go ahead and go to form. So we're going to click on form. Now this is the general start out form. You'll notice they give you 2 sample questions to start with. Up here you'll kind of create your title. So we're just going to say here Google form screencast. And basically what I recommend to everybody in this box is to put a description of your survey as well as any other instructions or information they need to know, whether it's this survey's to be completed by day 3, this Thursday, just information like that. And again, the description should explain the purpose. So basically what I'm going to say is and then again, like I said here on the last one, description of how the collection data will be used. For example, blog post, research paper, just let them know what they're doing that for. So we're going to go ahead and go in here and just say your social network ID. And we're going to make this a required one. Now, if you do not check mark this box, it's not going to allow, or it's not going to make it a required one, so they can skip it where it's not going to be a required question for them. Now, this icon with a pencil means edit, so you can always come back and edit. So, for example, notice how I mouse over this one, we get the same icons. So this is where I can edit the question. The middle one is to copy. So let's say you have multiple questions, for example, doing a quiz, a math quiz, and all you want to do is change the numbers in it, but everything else is going to be basically worded the exact same thing. What you could do is just duplicate it and then just change the few words that you need and you're good to go. Or if you just want to completely delete the question, here's your trash can. So we're going to hit done. Now, in this one, I'm going to edit this question. We're going to come in here and now say, what advice do you have for pre-service students in developing their own PLN? And I'm going to choose from the different styles. You can see a paragraph text, multiple choice, check boxes, choose from a list, scale, and a grid. So we're going to show you a paragraph text. Now the box is bigger. We're going to require that and say done. Now I'm going to go to another question, kind of show you again the variety of questions here. So we're going to go up to add an item. We're going to go to multiple choice. Now you'll notice the little radial or round buttons. This means they're singular. So what we could say here is, which social network platform do you use? Now, I'm not going to do it in this tutorial video, but you could even make this in more an advanced type survey. Depending on how they respond to this question, you could say go to a different page, and then there's questions that further challenge them or makes them think a little more critically, that's related to what they choose option on the answers here. Something to think about, especially on quizzes. So we're going to just say Twitter clerk and then I'm going to say add other. This way it gives them the chance to add their own to it. We're going to say required. Up here in the next question, now here is check boxes. And I'm going to say if you use multiple social networks, identify them by checking their box. So we're going to go ahead and say Twitter, Plurk, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're going to say Google Plus, Nings, and then we're going to say add other. And in this one, we're going to go ahead and say Edmodo as an option. Now, I'm going to leave this as a optional question for the example if you use multiple social networks. Maybe there's some of them that do not use multiple. Therefore, if I require it and they don't, it becomes an invalid question. And we're going to say done. Now, to make a difference here, see the little red asterisks or little stars? Those are required, just like you see up here, here, here. This one doesn't have it. It's not a required question. So we're going to go up here and go to choose from a list. Now I'm going to ask, what grade level or are you teaching? Should say currently teaching. And then from this drop down list we're going to say lower elementary, and we'll just do this pre-K-3, upper elementary 4 through 6. We're going to say junior high and we're just going to put this 7-8. Now obviously there may be situations where some teachers are 6th grade teachers but they're in a middle school. It just depends on the structure, so you can word that however you would like. We could then say secondary and say 9-12, and then post-secondary, which is your undergrad or graduate courses. And we'll require that one. But this way now you'll see it's required and they just choose whichever answer they want from the drop down window. A scale. Now here's how we would go about this and say rate, or let's put it this way. And what we're going to say is we're going to rate this as from 1 to 5. We're going to say not needed or major role in my own learning. And done. So now you scored a 5 if they feel appeal is a major role in their own learning, or a 1 if it's not needed. And then the last thing, if you were to have it, you could then go to a grid type question to where you've got your columns and your rows to think about. So that's a possible idea. So that shows you the type of questions that you can use. Now let's take a look at some other things. One thing to keep in mind, unlike a Word document, you'll notice I have yet to save this survey. Whereas you know in Google Docs, when you're typing a document, it'll save ever so often. So that's something to keep in mind, that as you're developing this, how often you want to save this. Now the one thing I will also give you some insight to is once you save it, the Google applications will automatically create the spreadsheet for you. So it's not like the old days where you were creating a website page with a survey and then you had to go create the database and then make the database mapped to the form that you were using, and you have that whole long day project. Where here you can see how fast we created this. It automatically creates the spreadsheet that's mapped. So each column in the spreadsheet will be one of these. Now if you wanted to move the questions around, for example, maybe I want this one at the very end. Since I have not saved this, alright, I will be able to not see any problems with my columns. In other words, what I'm saying here is that when you move this around after you have saved the form originally and it's created this Google spreadsheet, that spreadsheet columns, when you move it around in your survey after it's been saved, will not reflect those changes. So that's something to keep in mind, is to look at the layout and the order of your questions before you do anything. The other thing I want to point out is make sure your very last question is required, because of the situation where people may be tabbing and then hit enter. Well, if they do that and they were trying to tab down to the last question, they may have accidentally jumped your questions and went right to the submit on your page, and therefore have submitted an incomplete survey or quiz, depending on the purpose of what you're doing. Under themes, these are pre-made themes that Walmart, I was thinking of Walmart because of the stocks. The Google has provided you, and you can just kind of browse around, find the appropriate one for what you're wanting. And this one, I'm just going to stay pretty simple. It lets you preview it, see what it looks like, say, yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to hit apply. Now, here you don't see what we just chose, but up here it tells you the name of the theme. So that way you know the one that you wanted was selected. You can email this form out to folks straight from here if you have their email address. The other thing is, down here in this bottom, you'll see this link here. This is the actual URL to the spreadsheet. Now I know we're in the form part right now creating, but this will bring you to the actual spreadsheet itself. So this isn't necessarily the link you want to send out there for them to complete your survey. We'll get that in a moment. For C responses, you could say summary and spreadsheet. That's once you have results in there or responses from those that you've asked to complete it. You can do that this way, or back in the Google Docs, just go back in and be able to choose the spreadsheet straight from yours, and we'll show you that in a moment. Under Actions, we're going to go Edit Confirmation. Here is the automatic confirmation. Once they hit Submit, what do you want displayed? You can leave it generic. Maybe you put something in there saying, thank you for contributing advice and input for my pre-service students. We will be using the information shared for PLN discussions in class as well as online. Now, you also have an option here where it says Publish Summary, Response Summary. That's what that means by is once they've completed it, they can click on a link and go back and look at what everyone else said. Now, understand that there's going to be a difference. I am in my Google account. If I was in an education account, for example, my Sterling College one, or my public school Google account, I would have two check marks here. One to make it public, another one to keep it private. I could keep it private to where folks can't do anything without logging back in. Some of them could be able to go in there and do things where you may not want them to be. Then again, you may want them to be able to go back and edit their responses. So those would be typical check marks down here if you're in a Google Apps for Education account creating your surveys. So I'm going to hit Save. Now you'll notice as soon as I put that theme on, this changed to Save, and therefore we now have a spreadsheet created. And the final thing is when you go and you're ready to take your survey and make it available for folks to complete, and you want to embed it, in other words, put the actual form itself on a blog, a wiki, a website, go right here where it says embed and copy this code. This is the full complete code that you would need to embed it to where it's live. So at this point, now that it's saved, we've got it created. I'm going to close this out. You're going to go now see I'm back in my Google Docs. Here's what we just created. This is the spreadsheet. As you notice, here's the spreadsheet questions that come across here. So all responses will be here, and here's what's nice. Here's a timestamp. So if you're having your students complete something, it's going to tell you the time and date that they submitted it. So if they say, oh, well, I did that before the deadline, well, guess what? You just have to look, and there's the timestamp. So that would be one thing to be able to even take a look at, if need be. And as you notice, earlier when I moved the questions around, what advice? Remember I moved that to the end? Well, look where it's at in the column. It's here. So it's a little bit different order than what we just saw a little bit ago. So that's something to, again, keep in mind when you're moving your columns around. Now finally, if I close this one, or excuse me, with this open, you're going, okay, where's my actual survey? You're going to go up to Form. See how there's a 0? That means there's no responses down here, and obviously we can see that. But under Form, you're going to be able to go to Edit Form and make whatever changes you might need to make afterwards. And once you make those changes will be automatic for those viewing it. You won't have to go back and redo the embed code and everything. It's all live here. The other option here is go to Live Form. Now here's what it looks like. So if you wanted to create just a link and not embed, or take the link and put it out on Twitter, or put it in a wiki to where they have to click on a link, or an email, this is the link you would use. You could take that, you could use a URL shortener, tinyurl, bit.ly, furly, Google, all of them are different types of URL shorteners, but this gives you yours. You would just need that link right there. Now, once you've reached that deadline and you no longer want people submitting responses, under Form, click and go right here. Accepting responses. Remove the check mark by clicking on it, and as you notice now it's not check marked. You can no longer access that live form. It's blocked. Or in this case, you've hidden it. You've hit, kind of like hitting stop on your music. But we're going to hit accept, so it's back to going. Here's embed form in a web page, and there's the embed code again. So that's just another way of getting to that code. Now, to show you what one would look like if it's embed, let's take a look here. This is one that I use with my face-to-face college students in the technology and classroom course that I teach at Sterling College. So we do our stuff in class, and then I have them complete this little form right here. Basically what I'm doing with this is asking them to tell me a little bit about themselves, plus what are some things that they would like to learn in this class. And then, what's your basic, how comfortable are you using computer and technology? So that just gives you an example of what to do there. Good luck and best wishes on creating your own Google Forms.